Do you like swords or bows? Guns, maybe? I think I look great in a cloak, and I certainly don't want to be hit by those gloves some Zayas are wearing in my games. Oh well, you guessed it, we're talking about items today. Hey everyone, and welcome to another ProGuides TFT video. Today, we're giving you the items tier list for set 3 so far. Remember, this is a tier list for the whole set, all 5 patches of it up to this point. Don't be surprised to see an item that hasn't been doing so hot currently, but did well in previous patches, or the opposite. Our tier list is based on what our challenger players see on the ladder, as well as items we see on most top 4 comps via various resources. As such, when a champion like Kayle is good for many patches in a row, you can expect Guinsoo's Rageblade stocks to go up, up, up. Try to squeeze the best ones into your comps for maximum LP gain while they're unchanged. Before we dive in though, make sure to check the link in the description and get to see all the content we'll be uploading for you guys, created by top challenger players around the world to help you get better and hit that first place in your games. Our TFT coaching platform is live on ProGuides.com with really active and awesome coaches, one click away from helping you climb that ladder. See you guys there. S tier. Our S tier includes items that will be very familiar, as you see them in most comps that manage to top 4 and often top the whole lobby. First up, Red Buff. This item has been nerfed twice, and I still don't even think if I get it early and have Illusion, I instantly slam it. It has been the most consistent item this set, carrying early game and still doing work in the late game, preventing celestial healing, redemptions, and the like. Another reason Red Buff is here is that it doesn't lock you into a comp. You would naturally prefer to go blasters or cybers with it, but it's a solid item no matter what comp you end up going. Well, except maybe sorcerers. Next up is Force of Nature. Yeah, we maybe should have put it first, but Red Buff is so much easier to make, so we thought it made a difference. Force of Nature allows you to expand your comp immensely, usually adding another synergy or 2 to enhance your army. Although there are some really strong spatula items, always hold out a little bit in case you get that free FON, especially if you get an early spatula carousel. Following right in its heels, we have Last Whisper. This item had a slow start, especially due to the explosiveness of the early set 3 meta. However, when mechs started building brambles and then Poppy happened, and let's not even talk about Xayah, this item has risen to the must-build list for physical comps. Champions like Xayah, Jhin, Aurelia, Jinx all use it to great effectiveness, and it usually is the first item you build out of a glove if your comp needs it. We would never leave Infinity Edge out of the top list, whether it's early in set 3 and it's on Shaco or Aurelia, or midway and it's on Jinx or Aurelia, or late and it's on Xayah or Aurelia. Wait, I think I'm seeing a pattern here. Well, anyway, Infinity Edge is one of the safest items to make early and get good results out of, as well as insane value in the late game with the way its multiplicative scaling works. It has also been a really scalable item throughout the set, earning its place in the S tier. Can't be S tier without Zephyr. It's an item you don't often see in lower elos, but it definitely is one of the strongest as you rank up. Positioning in a way that allows for a good knockup can be tricky, but there's various ways to do it. Have you tried benching the unit as soon as each round ends? Then you can put it back last second without giving any prior info to your opponent as to where you're inclined to place it. Zephyr can win or save games, and learning to use it and actually build it is one of the marks of transition from platform to diamond. Yeah, that's how important it is. Quicksilver Sash is also here. It was nerfed a bit, bringing it to an okay level as it was quite overpowered. Still, one of the most stable and safe to use defensive items in set 3, hands down. It's a necessity for mech, strong for Kayle, a must on Xayah and Xerath, and the list goes on. It's the only counter to Zephyr right now, and those initial 10 seconds of almost total freedom, other than one-shotting, will grant your carries time to annihilate your enemies. When you get that rod and spatula, you know what time it is. It's time for Demolitionist Charge. You might say this is mainly a Kai'Sa item, and you played mech infill with it in 10.10 and got 6. Yeah, Kai'Sa was amazing with this for many patches and still is, but the recent rise of Gangplank plus any Demolitionist to AoE stun is supercharging this item into the S tier. Try putting it on your MF in a Brawler Blaster comp and adding GP. I hear the fireworks are amazing. Guardian Angel could not be anything but S tier. Although it dropped a bit in value while QSS was in its 15-day heyday, it's an amazing item, often winning you the round because of that aggro reset. Let's not forget that it also resets the aggro of the wearer as well, something that can be round winning too. Also, Gangplank without GA is basically trolling, so make sure you save one for him. Seraph's Embrace has been a bit undervalued lately, but Ziggs is making a comeback. This item has been part of S tier comps left and right, including Mech, Rebels, and Star Guardians at their best. One of the great advantages is that it can be used early to great effect by many champions like Lucian or Ziggs, and be transferred to another later like Aurelion Sol or Misfortune. Last but not least is Bramble Vest. It has been an item used in S tier comps over and over, and the rise of Last Whisper is largely due to Bramble Vest being so popular. It's also an amazing item early due to the AoE damage it throws around and the extreme tankiness it provides. That concludes our S tier. There are a few items that were really close to making the list, but you will likely see them in the A tier, so let's move right into that. The first item out of the gates is Morrocrux. It was a close contender to join its brother or sister Red Buff on the S tier, but it has fallen off slightly, especially due to the relative unpopularity of AP comps in the middle of set 3. It has made a strong comeback lately, but due to spells being lesser than auto attacks into spreading it, we do not think it should make the S tier. Ionic Spark was close to the S tier, but it couldn't make it. The fact that it lowers magic resist around the wearer is extremely strong, never mind the extra small bursts of damage when they use their spells. The item is excellent on tanks with solid spells like Jace or Vi, as well as Gangplank for obvious reasons. Dragon's Claw might not be the #1 cloak item right now, but it used to be quite popular as a mech and generally strong tank item. It is still a solid item, and 2 Dragon's Claws make a tank nearly immune to magic damage. It's pretty amazing. Thief's Gloves are close behind, and the only reason they're in A tier is because of gloves being so good for other items. Thief's Gloves are really good on Aurelia and Kayle and are quite good for snowballing early double gloves in the early game. You can also find them on magic damage focused comps where gloves are not as strong outside of QSS. Giant Slayer is as steady as its preferable comp, Brawler Blasters. Given the permanent S tier rating of the comp, you'd expect one of its top items to be S as well. The problem is, it's almost only that comp and Jinx that build it. As such, we cannot really climb that ladder as an all-around OP item. Recurve Bow, one of its components, makes Last Whisper too, so it's usually better to make that first. Sorry, Giant Slayer. Rabadon's Death Cap always finds its way into comps. Despite the difficulty of its components, as using 2 rods can be seen as wasteful, the item gives solid returns every time. Surprisingly, it's excellent in many comps on support characters like Jarvan or Karma, which is refreshing to see. Those poor supports need their itemizing too. Death Blade is up here as well. Given its track record, it should be in B tier. The item was unplayable and undesirable due to its double BF cost for most of the set. This rating is more of a predictive one, since DB is now an excellent item, on par with Infinity Edge, and definitely worth building. Irelia, Xayah, Jinx all like their Death Blades, though what Jinx does with a blade when she has a cannon is beyond me. Redemption gets a solid A as well. Given the disuse comps like Cybers have for tiers, as well as the all-around usefulness of Redemption, the item sees a lot of play, even as an early craft on Leona. It's one of the better items to get off full item carousels too. Make sure you do not underestimate it. Trap Claw is another item that is slowly rising, with many challengers right now rating it higher than QSS even. The reason behind that is the prevalence of Jinx and Kayle mirrors. In the mirror, stunning the opponent's Kayle for 4 seconds is really good, the equivalent of a Zephyr's. It has been a solid defensive item throughout set 3, especially good against Kai'Sa once she jumps to your back line. Guinsoo's Rage Blade is here too. It's not too popular an item as far as comp diversity is concerned. It's mainly used for Kayle and Xerath, so Kayle and Friends and Dark Stars. Outside those, it's a fairly unpopular item, but its presence into 2 comps that made it to S tier consistently, it deserves an A rating. We're going to separate Spatula Origin items into 2 categories, A tier and B tier, with the exception of Demo Spat. In the A tier, we will have Rebel Metal, Infiltrator's Talons, and Celestial Orb. These 3 are the most commonly successful spatula items, as they allow you to be much more flexible and already powerful builds, like giving Rebel Metal to Gangplank, Talons to Aurelia, or Celestial Orb to anyone for that 4 or 6 Celestial buff. This concludes our A tier. If you think we missed an item here, we would love to hear your opinion in the comments. Until then, let's move on to the B tier. First one out of the gate in the B tier is ZZ Rot Portal. Surprised? You shouldn't be. It's one of the best early game items to preserve health and even win streak. Its strength increased throughout the set as Hyperroll comps came alive, since it is so much more powerful on 3-star units. Jeweled Gauntlet is here too. While at first glance it's strong, it hasn't been doing that hot throughout the set, finding a home on Darius or Aurelion Sol at times, but not necessarily as a craft. people often take it as a nice to have from late game carousels. The ability to crit on spells, while good, is still limited by your crit chance, so getting a Rabadon's, a Morello, or the like is a much better craft. Spatula origin items like Protector's Chest Guard, Blade of the Ruined King, Star Guardian's Charm, and Dark Star's Heart are here in the B tier as well. They have seen play, but they're not by any chance win conditions consistently like items in the A and S tier. They still allow for some flexibility, but they are usually win more items throughout the set, like putting Star Guardian on Vel'Koz. Rapid Fire Cannon might be surprising with its B tier rating, but it's situational on most comps other than Kale, where it's core. It has not seen too much play in set 3, and it even got buffed relatively early into the set. Chalice of Favor gets a solid B. Its rise to S tier is not enough to outshine the periods of mediocrity or even uselessness outside of patch 10.9. It's also likely to be removed in the Mindset expansion. Finally, as an item that only does well in multiples, it cannot get a good rating as a standalone item. Runan's Hurricane is a great item for snipers and anyone who already has a Shojin. It's a solid item, but that's about it, not really winning you the game. On characters like Jhin and Rakan, Ashe, Kassadin with Shojin, it gets a lot of value. An interesting application of Hurricane likes in Mana Reavers as well. It also reaves with the extra bolt. It's finally decent on Jinx to help her get that rocket form faster. Zeke's Herald is a strong item, especially with the new Kha'Zix build, where Voids get high on attack speed and destroy everything in sight. A situational item otherwise, so it gets a B. Shroud of Stillness is an interesting one. When you have one, it's S tier, but you almost never make it, especially since its components are so contested. If you get a carousel with one in it, that's often the best pick, or if you have leftover items and wonder what to build. This disparity, on top of the fact that it was pretty bad until it got buffed early in the set, give it a B rating for now. This should not stop you from picking it up though, as the disruption it provides is game-winning. Hand of Justice is here too. It has seen some ups and downs this set, but it still is a decent craft or yield off of a carousel. It can go on Kale, Aurelia, Misfortune, and other carries. It's a decent all-around item that will give you some return no matter what. The final item for the B tier is Frozen Heart. After its buff, it has been a solid item to put on characters that dive into the backline, like Vi or Infiltrators. It's also extremely strong in multiples, shutting down whole teams and their carries. This concludes our B tier, so let's move on to the poor items who got a C. Spear of Shojin is here, and barely so. This rating is explained by the Spear being a win more item and never really core in any comp outside of Chrono Ashe. It also really takes off when paired with Runan's, not so much on its own. Warmog's armor, even though it got buffed, is still here in C. Warmog's is a decent use of your belts early, but it falls off faster than Altair from Clock Tower, so it's almost never a good idea. Titan's Resolve is a good item for the Garen mech, and that's about it. With Xin Zhao falling out of favor too many patches ago, the item has been slowly dropping in tiers. A few patches ago, it could have even gotten A tier, but not anymore. Luden's Echo never really got off this set like it did with Kog'Maw in set 2. It remains solidly in the C tier. Swordbreaker is another nice to have item, and the disarm can even be game winning, but you almost never craft it and only take it when forced from a carousel. Static Shiv is another one of those early game items that fall off really hard in the mid and late game. The reason it gets C and not B though, since we like early game, is because it's not often made due to its components. Recurve Bow is much more desirable for Kale and Last Whisper comps for a few patches now, and Tyr is better made into Seraph's, Redemption, and the like. Locket of the Iron Solari. Locket of the Iron Solari gets a C too. It has been largely inconsequential for the duration of set 3, and while okay on Cybers since they are item agnostic, is not too great a pick since the shield is quite small, even at 3 stars. Hextech Gunblade is rarely the right call as well. It's one of those damn, I guess I have to item crafts, as it's decent on many things but not great on nothing. Its often inconsequential healing does not live up to the rod and BF used to make it. The only thing worse than Gunblade is Bloodthirster. While a decent situational craft, 2 Celestial is usually better than that item. Try not to build it. Starship could not be like his mercenary buddies. Poor Aurelian only had 2 weeks of fame, then despite repeated buffs to the class and the champion, he remains subpar. Rebels are good, but people have been moving away from really itemizing Aurelian for a while now, or even focusing him as the carry. Okay, we got them all. This is based on available data and the experience of our top players right now. A tier list is a guide for prioritizing items. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't use a Bloodthirster on your Aurelia if you have the opportunity to do so and it would help you. So go out there and climb that ladder. As always, we love your feedback and continue to bear it in mind while creating our videos. Hit us in the comments with your thoughts about our ratings. We really like interacting with our audience and hearing your opinions. And until next time, good luck out there on your grind.